Our next question comes from Heather B., who asks, what is the difference between a participle phrase and a gerund phrase? And how do they relate to dangling or misrelated participles? Heather, these are wonderful questions, and they are questions that have been very much, or they have been topics that have been very much alive in my mind because we've spent the past summer filming the new videos, the supplementary additional videos for the intermediate Cozy Grammar course, which we are madly working at editing and preparing to release as soon as we possibly can. In the intermediate Cozy Grammar course, Marie and I delve quite deeply into participle phrases or participial phrases, depending on which term you like better, gerund phrases, indeed phrases of all kinds. So because these topics can be somewhat intimidating, let's start as simply and as directly as we can. Let's start with a participle or a participial phrase. A participle phrase is a phrase that uses a participle to describe a noun. This is important. I'll repeat it. A participle phrase is a phrase that uses a participle to describe a noun. Let's take a look at some examples. I'll pull them up, or I'll put them up on our screen. Okay, here we have an example of two participle phrases. Here we have the phrase, or the sentence, writing quickly, he finished the paper in 3 hours. Let me find my underlining device. Here we go. So in this case, writing quickly is the participle phrase. It begins with the present participle of the verb write, writing, and it also has the adverb quickly, writing quickly. And that's a phrase because it's sort of on its own and needs to be attached to something. So in this case, the participle phrase writing quickly is describing what? It's describing the subject of the sentence, he. Writing quickly, he finished the paper in 3 hours. Similarly, the table. In this second sentence, the table placed beside the window was covered in flowers. Here we have a longer participle phrase, placed beside the window. Placed is the past participle of the verb place, and it's here combined with the prepositional phrase beside the window. And again, as in the first sentence, it is describing a noun, in this case, the table. Where is the table placed? The table was placed beside the window. So this participle phrase, placed beside the window, is doing the work of basically an adjective. That's why these can also be called adjective phrases. So there's a first note about participles. Now, with both of these, there's the possibility of what you alluded to of a dangling participle or a misplaced participle or a misrelated participle. Now, what is this? That is simply a situation where it is not clear what noun the participle or the participle phrase is describing. So let me pull up an example that I thought of. Here is an example. Writing quickly, the paper got finished in 3 hours. Here we have a participle phrase, the same one as in our first sentence, writing quickly. But notice that there's a problem. If we read this sentence sort of casually and quickly, we think, oh yeah, somebody was writing quickly, therefore the paper that they were writing got finished in 3 hours. But grammatically speaking, this leaves open the question of who or what was doing the quick writing. And the sentence suggests, even more interestingly, that it was the paper that was writing quickly. And wouldn't it be wonderful if papers could say write themselves? So writing quickly, the paper, and then it doesn't make any sense. Got finished in 3 hours, because if the paper was writing quickly, then it couldn't get finished. It would finish itself. Anyway, you can see how, in this case, the lack of clarity about the relationship between the participle phrase and the rest of the sentence leads to what we call a dangling participle. That means a participle that's hanging out in space, so to speak, and not clearly connected to its sentence. Now, there's one more example. I'll clear this out of the way, and I'll give you one more example. Because sometimes these these dangling participles or misrelated participles can lead to funny situations. Here's one. Wearing a red hat, the seagull flew over the man. Again, if we were reading this quickly, we might assume that, oh yeah, there was a man, he was wearing a red hat, and a seagull flew over them. And if we were in a casual or colloquial setting, we would probably understand what was being said. But notice that this participle phrase, which in this case uses the present participle, wearing a red hat, seems to suggest not that the man was wearing the hat, but that the seagull, wearing a red hat, the seagull flew over the man. And that would be quite a sight to see a seagull wearing a red hat flying over a person. So this is how participle phrases can lead to these potentially confusing, if not funny, situations. Now, you also asked about gerund phrases. Now, there's a very simple contrast to participle phrases. Gerund phrases are phrases that begin with a gerund, such as the ing form of a verb, but gerund phrases are used as a noun. For instance, writing poems can help us learn grammar, and that's something I actually believe quite strongly. Now notice that here we also have the present participle of the verb write, to write, but here it is being used in a very different way. Here, writing, or in fact the gerund phrase writing poems, is being used as the subject of the sentence. Writing poems can help us learn grammar. So the major difference between the participle phrase and the gerund phrase is that a participle phrase describes a noun. A gerund phrase is or is being used as a noun. So I hope that that helps to clarify the difference between participle phrases and gerund phrases, and also describe where the issue of dangling participles and misrelated participles comes in. Do let me know if you have any further questions, and I'll be happy to answer those as well.